Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to present this important information tonight on parkland and facility inventory. I am going to be focusing on 5 areas in my presentation: an overview of our public spaces system, strategic planning, an inventory of our assets, who is using our facilities, and also opportunities for the future. Jane already talked to you at the beginning of this meeting about the update to the Public Spaces Master Plan that John just mentioned again. And the current 2005 PSMP, as I'll refer to it, uses 5 categories to define the county's public spaces system. Now, understand again, we're going to be doing a classification system as part of that plan, but this is what we have now. And so as we've gone through in a very detailed way our inventory, this is how we've grouped them. We have parks and natural resource facilities, outdoor active facilities and sports, indoor facilities, urban public spaces and streetscapes, and arts, cultural, and historic resources. Again, we've been inventorying our existing land and facilities. I think they're going to be very important in sharing them with you tonight, and we have a lot more details to back up what I'm going to be going through. And as John just noted, they're going to also feed very much into our PSMP update process. I want to start by focusing on parkland that's in our system. So in the PSMP, we include not just county land, but federal, regional, and various easements. So there's over 2,200 acres of parkland within Arlington County. Now, 1,150 acres of that, or roughly half of it, are owned and managed by the federal government. And these important spaces include things like Arlington National Cemetery, the George Washington Memorial Parkway, Iwo Jima Memorial, and Theodore Roosevelt Island. So they have other things on them, but there's a lot of open space, and that's why they're included in the inventory. They also include important natural resources, and the facilities that are on the federal lands are certainly used and enjoyed by both our local residents and visitors and tourists to the area. Arlington County owns and manages 918 acres, and that represents approximately 40% of the inventory, and I'm going to break that down a little further on the next slide. We also have a partnership and are one of 6 participating organizations with the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, and they own and manage 145 acres. They have 3 parks that are in the county. Upton Hill, which has the only outdoor public swimming pool, miniature golf, batting cages, and a picnic area. They have Potomac Overlook Nature Center, which many folks love. And also the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad Regional Trail starts here in Arlington and goes all the way out to Loudoun County. So very important things, again, used by both local residents and others in the region. We also have a lot of public access easements, and so there's 30 acres of those that are privately owned and managed but available for the public. We also have 16 acres of conservation easements, and these are things that we have through our partner, the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust. They don't so much have public access to them as that they help protect important natural resources. What you'll see here on this next slide of our county-owned parkland, if you look at the map, a good portion of what we have falls along the 4-mile run stream valley. And then we have various smaller parks scattered throughout the county. So as I mentioned, the county has 918 acres of parkland, and within that, it's broken up into 142 individual parks. So that's a pretty significant number of parks. And the great thing about them is that almost all residents in the county have some kind of park available to them within a half a mile of where they live. And so that's a really good thing. But I do want to note, and the chart on the right is a little bit different than what's in the handout, a breakout of how those parks break out. So the majority of them are very small parks. 62 of them, or about 43%, are less than 2 acres in size. And so these smaller parks, which generally are used by neighborhoods, tend to have minimal facilities. So there's something like, and I'm going to give you some examples as I go through, and hopefully you'll connect to them, like the little Bailey's Branch Park that's on South 10th and South Columbus, or Fort Myer Heights Park on North Fort Myer Drive, that has like a small playground, a small grassy area, maybe some seating areas, or something like Clarendon Central Park between Wilson and Clarendon Boulevards, which is an urban park with seating and a plaza. We have 37 parks, which is roughly 26% of the inventory, that are 2 to 5 acres in size. And so we start to be able to add a few more facilities in these, like the Marcy Road Park on North Marcy Road that has tennis courts and a basketball court, or something like Eads Park on South Eads and Fort Scott Drive that has a playground, a small athletic field, and a gazebo. Another 15 of our parks are between 5 and 10 acres. And so with that, we can start to support multiple facilities, such as the Powhatan Springs Park on Wilson Boulevard that has athletic field and a skate park, or something like Doctor's Run on South George Mason Drive that has a playground, sand volleyball court, open grassy area, and picnic area. So what this chart is showing is only about a fifth of our inventory are parks that are actually 10 acres or larger. And those parks are the backbone of our system as far as being large enough to support the major facilities like our large athletic field complexes and a lot of our reservable picnic shelters and things like that. So a good example of that is something like a Barcroft Park. It has our major diamond field complex of 5 fields, a synthetic turf community field, reservable picnic area, playground, and community center. But what happens even in the tiniest parks, but especially in these larger parks, is we have a lot of the parkland that is also natural resource, and they help protect that. And so that is very, very important to the system as well. So even though there's 918 acres, it's not by a long shot all developable. So something like a Barcroft at 65 acres has the facilities on one side, and on the other half it's steeply wooded areas and the critical magnolia bog that make up the other half. So that brings me to the last point I want to make on this slide in the bottom left, which is that between 30 and 40% of the parkland that the county owns are either designated in one of our comprehensive plan elements as a natural resource conservation area, or they're a resource protection area, or RPA. And again, these are critical because preserving these is valuable and just as important as building facilities, and I don't want to lose sight of that. I want to touch briefly on land acquisition because the county has been very fortunate to have an active program to strategically expand parkland to meet needs over the years. And the graph on the top shows land acquisition between 1995 and 2014 in 2-year increments. So the largest period of expansion was between 2003 and 2004, which is when we got the major piece of Longbridge Park. And in other years, such as the most recent 2013-2014 period, the county acquired less than an acre, and that's usually by acquiring very small R5, R6 kind of parcels, which are done to fill out existing parks, such as the last infill piece that was in Butler Holmes Park. I'm touching on this next slide just to say that the PSMP is our guiding document for land acquisition, and it contains an appendix in the back that has potential sites. It also has criteria for evaluating properties. And the reason that we're showing you this is an example of how we create parkland. There really aren't any parcels out there that are undeveloped. And so we've been able to expand our park inventory by about 76 acres over the last 20 years. But in this example, this is Douglas Park, and as you can see in the aerial photo on the right, there are several infill parcels that are privately owned in the park. And just last summer, we purchased one of those parcels, and what we end up doing is taking down the house structure or commercial structure that's there. In this case, it's the little house in the lower left, and any outbuildings, and then restoring the land as parkland. And so it is a very long process, deliberative process that we've been doing over a number of years to start to fill out these parks. And we're doing them both to get really critical natural resources, or in some cases a historic resource, or to enable us to get the last piece of land so that we can put some kind of park facility there. I also want to touch on, in addition to the public spaces master plan, there are a number of other documents that help guide our acquisition and our planning of facilities. So in this example, this is the recently adopted Crystal City sector plan, and the map on the left shows the the location of these future open spaces. And in the most recent sector plans like Crystal City and Columbia Pike, there's also an accompanying chart that shows what kind of open spaces and parks are planned and what the amenities are supposed to be as these things develop. Again, very, very long-term planning. This is probably 20, 30-year planning to achieve some of these things. Lots of other things have to fall into place to make it happen, but it's important to be very planful about it and very deliberate about going about it. I want to mention some of the county's strategic planning efforts that are currently underway for our parks. The ones on the left are happening through several different capital improvement program categories. So George already touched on the Lubber Run Community Center project that's going to replace one of our oldest community centers, as well as the surrounding outdoor park facilities. There are also projects like Virginia Highlands, Dawson Terrace, Stratford, and TJ. And these are major renovations or replacements of our outdoor park facilities where we are grouping or bundling facilities that are of similar age and disrepair and replacing them at the same time. Generally, when we're doing these kind of projects, things are going back about where they are. This is not so much master planning as renovation and replacement. Also on the bottom here are the synthetic field locations, and we have been in a very deliberate way strategically converting some of our grass fields to synthetic turf. There's 2 new ones coming online in a partnership between the county and Arlington Public Schools at the new school campus up there at Williamsburg. And then there's a future location that will be determined as part of the FY17 budget process and guided by the Public Spaces Master Plan. So on the right here are some of the park master plans that we're doing, and these are much more robust civic engagement processes that are about either planning new parks, like the Mosaic Park in Ballston or Longbridge Park, planning for parks where we've been doing major strategic land acquisitions, such as the Jenny Dean Park, replanning something that has major challenges like the Bon Air Park, where most of our facilities are in the resource protection area, and as we go to replace them, we will need to plan it so that we can move them outside of that. Or we have opportunities occasionally to do something with another agency or locality. In this case, we've worked very closely with the City of Alexandria in the lower 4 Mile Run area for a master plan and many phased implementation there. I'm going to move quickly through this next section of inventory as I go over our inventory of facility assets. And the 5 categories are the ones I showed earlier in the presentations for parks and natural resources, outdoor active, indoor, urban, and then the arts, cultural, and historic. So the county has 10 sites that have very specifically been identified in the Natural Resource Conservation Plan as natural resource conservation areas. Again, they contain very critical natural resources that need to be protected. So this isn't places that have just like a single notable tree. These are whole areas and ecosystems that need to be protected. We also have community gardens and lots of individual plots. And as part of the 2015 Urban Ag Work Plan, it calls for extension of current gardens where possible, and we're just getting ready to do that on a site on 4 Mile Run Drive, and also the need to identify other sites. We have rentable facilities like some of our picnic shelters. We've got gazebos. The county has a very extensive inventory of trees. We have street trees. We've got trees in the parks. And we also track and take a look at the overall canopy coverage in the county, which is very important as the county continues to grow and develop. Some of the other facilities that we have in our outdoor, we have a lot of playgrounds. A good many of them are in parks, but also, as you would expect, at the elementary school level. We have 4 of the very popular water spray playgrounds. Dog parks is something that we have 8 of the off-leash areas, and they're some of our most popular facilities. We also have a lot of support facilities like restrooms or small amphitheaters. Touching on outdoor active facilities and sports, these are our major facilities as far as the amount of spaces that it takes to place them in our parks. And our athletic fields and courts are used for sports programs. We use them for classes. They're used for drop-in play. They're used by Arlington Public Schools. And what we've noted here on the bottom of each is a variety of different kinds of activities that take place on each type of field or court. There are 32 of the diamond fields, 44 of our large rectangular fields, and 19 of the combination fields. We're showing this slide so that you can get a feel for how much space these things take up. So this shows a variety of different sports and what the field size should be. And what you'll notice is that they're about 2 acres. That's pretty substantial, again, if you remember that almost half of our parks aren't even 2 acres. And along with the fields themselves, we need support facilities like bleachers, parking, restrooms, and things like that. So it is very challenging to place these. It is even more challenging to place multiple fields on a site. So we're somewhat limited in what we can do, and we have a deficit of fields, and we'll be needing more in the future as the population continues to increase. And I also wanted to just say that as we renovate the fields, some of them don't have those support facilities, so as we go through the process of renovation, we are bringing them up to our current standards, and that includes things like irrigation on the fields and, again, bleachers and things like that. Our athletic court facilities are for things like bocce, handball, pétanque, pickleball, which is one of the newest sports. We have a skateboard park at Powhatan. We also have a lot of basketball and tennis and volleyball courts throughout the county. Again, many are on county land, but a lot of them are on schools' land as well. As far as indoor facilities goes, we have 15 community centers. 5 of these are joint use with Arlington Public Schools. We also have standalone facilities, some smaller ones like Dawson Terrace, and then we have the Gunston Bubble. We have 6 senior centers. 5 of those are within our community centers, and then we have leased space at Culpeper Gardens. The aquatic centers in the county are at the 3 high schools, and then earlier on I mentioned the outdoor pool at Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority. And then we have 2 county nature centers and the one owned by the Regional Park Authority as well. We have lots of tiny spaces in the urban environment, but they are so critical to the population that lives there. And so what we wanted to share with you is that some of these are county-owned, but a lot of them are not. They're non-county, and they have either public access easements or they might have some other kind of lease or license agreement. And what's important here to the public is not who owns the land, but that they're available and that they feel comfortable using them. And so we wanted to walk you through a couple examples. So the one on the upper left is Penrose Square. This is our newest urban area on Columbia Pike with the water feature next to the new Giant that got developed. Extremely popular park since it opened. The one on the right is a very interesting project for us, and I think probably a lot more needs to be done along these lines in the future, and that's the Clarendon Barton interim open space. This is behind the Deli Daba there on Clarendon Boulevard. And we have a 2-year lease with the South Korean embassy that can be extended, and we basically cleaned up a very unkept area, put in some seating, put in a little multi-use sport court, and have just given, without a whole lot of capital expenditure, I should say, and have given people a great place to, to go and recreate. And again, it may go away, it will go away someday, but it may go away sooner, it may be there for a long time. And I think we're just gonna have to look at those kinds of things to help meet the needs. The photo on the bottom left is Wellburn Square. This is an example of one that is privately owned and managed, but it has a lot of great seating areas and places to relax. They also do things like arts markets and special events there. And then Gateway Park, I think George touched on building over I-66. So this is our one park that's over I-66 in Roslyn. Again, a very, very creative idea, very expensive to do, and some challenges in maintaining something like that that's over top of a roadway. But it has allowed us to have a nice piece of parkland in the Roslyn area. We also have a lot of historic resources that are located within our parks or are used as community centers. So several different forts, Fort Bernard, this is a photo of Fort Scott, Fort C.F. Smith. Dawson Terrace Community Center has an addition that was built on to the Dawson Bailey House that dates back to the 1800s. On the lower right is Maury School, which has also had an addition put onto it. And then we have several of the boundary stones, so this particular one happens to be located in Benjamin Banneker Park. So who is using our DPR facilities and what are they using them for? And what this shows is we've got a variety of classes and camps. You know, all ages use it. I don't think this says adults, but certainly the millennials and the adult population are heavy users of our facilities as well. We have had a long-standing partnership with Arlington Public Schools, and shared use is very, very important. We share our facilities and use things like summer camps, classes, and sports leagues that make use of both our facilities and public schools facilities. 10,000 hours of activities are scheduled at APS indoor facilities alone. Similarly, APS makes use of county's facilities, and they use our athletic fields, our courts, and our playgrounds for their sports teams, for recess, for PE classes, and for their scholastic teams. There are also 5 joint use facilities between the county and Arlington Public Schools, and those are governed by a memorandum of agreement. We schedule both county programs and schools programs. The county does that scheduling through our Rec Track program, which is a great way to keep track of the hours of usage and what's available. So for us, usage has gone up significantly in recent years. Overall facility reservations have increased 11% just in the last year. And as you can see in the bottom of the slide here, we've had a percentage increase over a 4-year period where our use of combination fields has grown over almost 50%, and 80% growth for our indoor community spaces. That is tremendous. We're not able to meet our current demands. We are coping by doing things like scheduling fields beyond what would be the recommended standards for hours of play, which means they wear out quicker and need replaced more frequently. We're turning down requests due to space constraints, and we're limiting our combination fields to different sports and different seasons. So I would like to dig a little deeper on the sports and recreation facility demand. We have 22 youth and adult sport programs, many of which are full or have wait lists. And so these are things like youth basketball, youth flag football, and the youth track and field program, and adult softball, adult basketball, and adult flag football. We have over 25,000 registrations for our Enjoy Arlington class programs, and these are programs that span across all ages. We also have a significant number of seniors who participate in our classes and programs. And then again, as mentioned earlier, APS is a major user of our facility and court spaces, and they have over 70 high school and 16 middle school sports teams. The county partners with a lot of affiliate groups, such as Arlington Soccer Association, Arlington Little League, Arlington Bolivian Soccer League, and they use our facilities for their programs. We also partner with private schools and universities, such as Bishop O'Connell, George Washington University, and Marymount. We also host special events at our facilities, like the annual Arlington County Fair. We have sports tournaments and things like movie nights at Gateway Park. Social leagues have become a new trend for us in recent years, and so there's things like bocce and kickball where these social leagues spring up, and that is really an attractor for the millennials. And we also have a number of other organizations and groups that run our facilities. Overall, our classes have experienced a 34% increase, and our youth sports have experienced a 33% increase over the last 4 years. In addition to some of the ways we're dealing with that I mentioned earlier, we're limiting programs, implementing undesirable start and finish times so that youth might have to play later into the evening. We've reduced our community drop-in opportunities, and we are limiting space to our affiliate and external groups and denying reservations. So again, we are seeing already the huge impact of what the lack of facilities and increased population is having. So I'm almost done here. There are several key points I want to emphasize before ending my presentation. The population increase is experiencing a direct impact on our park facility use and is putting pressure and increased demand on our open space. We don't have enough indoor and outdoor park and rec facilities to meet our current needs or address any future needs. The diversity runs across all spectrums of ages and needs and interests. We are maximizing our capacity through partnerships. I will say things like what we've done with George Washington University at Barcroft, where they brought in $5 million and totally renovated that and turned it into a fabulous stadium facility, are real pluses for the county. Similarly, Marymount funded the third field down at Longbridge. So those kind of partnerships are very, very important. Things like lighting are important for our facilities because without them, we can't maximize the use of the facility and help meet the demand. And then different materials, so something like synthetic turf. So if we have a lighted synthetic turf field, we can play over 2,000 hours. If we have just a grass field without lighting, we get 600 hours a year. So we get 3 times more use on a lit synthetic field. And that's just something the county's going to have to seriously look at. I know it's not popular with people that live close to them, but again, we have constrained resources. And then as far as our land acquisition goes, we're just going to need to continue to be very strategic about what we're purchasing. So as far as opportunities for the future, I think the public space master plan update will include our land acquisition strategies and key parcels to be acquired. The classification system that Jane touched on earlier is going to be critical, and also something that projects what our demands are going to be based on that survey information and kind of crafting our own set of standards. Continuing those partnerships with the universities, with nonprofits, with our athletic groups, and promoting additional ones is key. Exploring opportunities for temporary public spaces. Again, the Korean Embassy one's been a good example. There's a lot of opportunity to work with the business improvement districts and some other private partners. Developing strategies to increase our public access easements, again, to the general public. They don't care who owns it, they just want the ability to use it. And then finally, remaining mindful of the changing needs of the community and finding creative and sustainable ways to meet that growing demand. We're going to have to share facilities. There's going to be multi-purpose centers. We're going to have to look at things like building up and rooftop parks and parking structures so that we can keep more of the open space. So thank you.
Thank you.